Hey guys, I am here with Dr. Sine Dufour, and she is an amazing pelvic health physiotherapist, PhD, Professor McMaster, the whole thing, and a personal friend and mentor to me. And we're going to be showing you some doming. I am 3.5 weeks postpartum now, and we want to just kind of debunk some myths about what is diastasis recti safe and what is not safe. Take it away.
Yes. Okay. So one of the things that both Nikki and I really believe strongly is helping women to understand in their own body through some cues that they have to almost feel, but some cues through they can see in terms of understanding if their body is loading a task well or not. So that way they're not having to rely on something external to them, saying like, now can I do this? Now can I do this? They have a way of kind of figuring it out themselves. And we have a few little tips around that. Okay, so one of the things we do want to look for though, which sometimes can be easier for someone external to see, but oftentimes a woman will notice it on herself, is what we call doming, right? The area right in the midline where the linea alba tissue is, and that's the tissue that gets stretched out the most, the whole abdominal wall that gets stretched out when we're pregnant, but that's the one that gets stretched out the most and is oftentimes we think of being potentially the most vulnerable. So if we're doing tasks that seem to preferentially strain that tissue because we just can't quite load the task well yet, that's something we want to be aware of. And initially it doesn't mean therefore we don't do that task. Initially it means we try a different technique, a more optimal way of executing that task, and we kind of see where we go. So that's the first thing that we are going to be paying attention to. And then there's a couple other little litmus tests you can look for to make sure you're loading well and not potentially straining or aggravating the abdominal wall when we're trying to knit the darn thing back together again, right? Okay. So what Nikki is going to do is she is going to come into kind of what we call traditional tabletop in Pilates. And she's first just going to kind of use like a haphazard strategy where she doesn't have a ton of intention. And we're just going to see what happens, right? And you can see right away the distortion, right? So we don't have even load here. Go ahead and come on down, Nikki. So she just kind of haphazardly lifted one and then the other, and we saw what happened. And in some women, that distortion actually might be much more obvious, or they might not even be able to actually physically lift that second leg up, okay? So now, Nikki is going to do it again, but she's going to do a certain type of a breath, and she's going to do it intentionally, and we'll see what we see. Right, so now we see beautiful, like symmetrical, uniform tension generation across the abdominal wall, right? We didn't kind of see that distortion happening. And drop your legs back down. So Nikki was able to just change with intention, an active recruitment of her deep system, lifting the legs and doing the effort on the exhale breath, and that in her case was enough to normalize that activity. Some people, even with doing it intentionally, still might not be able to normalize, and if they can't, even with intention, then it means we're not quite ready for that task. We always want to be pushing ourselves as far as we can go. We want to overload the tissue, but we don't want to go to the point where we step over that line and now we're distorting, right? So Nikki, I would say, yeah, awesome. Double leg lifts into this table you can do, which many people 4 weeks postpartum can't do, right? So I would expect Nikki to be ahead in terms of, her fitness level being pregnant, and she is. She can safely load that task beautifully. Now we're going to make it harder and see what she can do. Here, little monkey. So this is actually, from a physiotherapist perspective, this is called like level 5 on a motor control testing protocol that we will often test people for things like lower back pain, lumbopelvic pain, looking at the abdominal wall, etc.
So it's the hardest.
This is the hardest, the 5th tier, right? Hardest. So I would never expect someone 4 weeks postpartum to do this. And if it wasn't Nikki, I honestly wouldn't even attempt it on someone this early.
Thank you, Sinéad.
But I feel like, she might be pretty darn close to this, and it will help to demonstrate what we need to be looking for and what women need to be feeling. So what you're going to do, Nikki, is you're going to, again, it's just a very haphazard strategy.
Do it poorly, basically.
Yeah, you're going to just try to lift both legs at the same time up. So, right, so we can see, we get this doming and this kind of invagination here and this doming here, right? We saw her obliques really had to come on and help, right? We saw that definition here. And Nikki's experience too, she's saying, yeah, that did not feel like it had ease. It didn't look like it felt good. So, and in fairness, this is the hardest motor control task, right? So now we're going to say, okay, but what if you do it with intention? We do your awesome strategy. So we can see actually it's way better. She's still popping a bit here.
I'm trying.
She still has her obliques here and come on back down. But it was dramatically better with that better technique, with that intention. So you saw though she still couldn't quite get it though. So that's when we'd say, you know what, you're just about there. But we're not going to be repeatedly doing that because it will repeatedly strain in a negative way. But we're going to work right just shy of that for her because we don't want her undertraining. We never want our moms undertraining, right? So we want her just coming shy of that. And I would suspect, honestly, even in a couple weeks, probably Nikki's going to be able to do this.
Okay, so Sinead, how often, because I know people are thinking this, how often are you saying, like, do you recommend in terms of frequency of these types of exercises so that I'm not undertraining?
Totally. So we usually say, based on the literature, 3 times a week minimum, you should be doing intentional engagement of these tissues a minimum of about 20 minutes. If we're kind of taking, sort of pooling all the research that has been done, anything less than that probably isn't going to be enough. So that what I would say would be the minimum.
20 minimum, just to recap, 20 minutes, 3 times a week minimum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
High five.
Good. Awesome.